interaction between you and goldfish to the platinum feeder to new fish is exposed. For example, I mentioned in the internal water temperature decline, containing the fish should be soaked in tank for at least 60 minutes to slowly balance the temperature and reduce the stress on the fish. Next, a strict quarantine process must be carried out. Avoid feeding in minutes. Wait 2 or 3 days until the new fish are fully adapted to the environment before starting to feed them small amounts. These steps are crucial for ensuring the healthy survival of the new fish. Experienced keepers understand that goldfish can tolerate hunger but not overfeeding. Overfeeding can lead to illness in goldfish. Goldfish are very eager to eat and always appear hungry. However, excessive food can lead to an increase in waste, which in turn increases in water and cause disease. In fact, goldfish have a strong ability to withstand the hunger and will not be affected by overeating for up to half a month. It is recommended to follow the principle of small amounts and frequent feedings. If feeding should be enough for the fish to finish in 3 or 5 minutes and feeding 3 or 4 times a day is ideal. This ensures adequate nutrition while maintaining the water quality. Beyond the water or maintaining too much of rice. New keepers often make two typical mistakes when it comes to water changes. Either not changing water for a long time, leading to deteriorating water quality, or changing too much water at once, causing drastic changes in the environment. Many keepers, upon noticing cloudy water, rush to change a large amount of water, sometimes more than 50% or even the entire tank. The result often backfires. The sarcastic approach is to change 30% of the water at a time, especially when the tank is newly set up. Even if there is a cloudy water, patience is needed. This is a necessary process for establishing the lubrication system. Over time, once the beneficial bacteria stabilize, the water quality will naturally become clean and transparent. Number 1. Overtreat. New fish keepers tend to get overly anxious and overtreating things. They often mistake normal physiological phenomena of fish for illness. For example, the white mucus secreted by the wound of goldfish, occasional tank scratching behavior, and seasonal color changes are all normal. Many keepers rush to medicate as the first sign of abnormality, not realizing that overtreatment is more dangerous than the disease itself. The correct approach is to observe for 48 hours first, keeping the water quality stable during this care. In most cases, the fish will recover on their own. And please remember, fish keeping is 30% treatment and 70% prevention. A good water quality environment is the key to preventing fish disease. Water is extremely important for goldfish. Therefore, when everyone pays attention to aquarium decorations and see the varieties, focus should be on how to maintain good water quality. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to discuss in the comment section. I would love to see photos and videos of your goldfish. Thanks.
diagnosis of ATTRCM can change how you envision your future, but the next step is still up to you. Start your journey with Amvuttra. Amvuttra treats the cardiomyopathy of ATTR amyloidosis in adults. It reduces TTR atherosclerosis and requires just 4 injections a year. Amvuttra is proven to help people with ATTR-CM live longer and have fewer heart-related hospital visits over 3 years compared to placebo. So you will continue on your journey, whether it's about what you do or who you're with. Amvuttra lowers the amount of vitamin A in your blood, which can affect vision. Other side effects include pain in the arms or legs, pain in the joints, and shortness of breath. Imagine what it can mean to live with ATTR-CM. Talk to your doctor about Amvuttra today. Amvuttra, just the ticket for ATTR-CM.
What's up guys, welcome back to Aquatic Elements. Today is a very exciting episode. We are getting some fancy goldfish for the new fancy goldfish aquarium. Let's head over to the aquarium and see how it's doing. Now it's been a long time since we've had fancy goldfish on the channel, and for those long-term subscribers who have been here for 2-3 years, you would know I have a massive passion for fancy goldfish, and it was just a matter of time before we got some new ones in my home. Now, you may have seen the new fancy goldfish aquarium set up probably about a week ago or so, and it is time to get some new fish, to get this tank going and to bring it to life. Now, the full system is working, it is super silent. I'm going to be adding some pothos plant to the 2 baskets at the back to give it a little bit of foliage greenery. Now, I may add some sort of decor. Not too sure on that yet, but we do need to add some established filter media from the Monster Fish Mega Tank. This tank is running around 22.5 to 23 degrees, so just a little bit lower than the Monster Fish Mega Tank. But the bacteria is going to help seal this tank and cycle it. Now tomorrow morning I'm going to be going to my local aquatic shop and seeing what goldfish that they have in store. We might do a little store tour, a mini store tour just to see what they've got. But we'll head to the shop and see what they have. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow and we can begin the new fancy goldfish aquarium. Now before we get the fish, I just thought I would go over the sump. Now I've made a few little modifications. First off, I've added some Jubilee clips and some cable ties onto the pipework for the UV just to be extra safe. I've also ordered some filter cups that are going to sit in this chamber. They are similar to the Red Sea filter cups used on marine aquariums, and hopefully they're going to sit in there. I can put some filter fluids in, and that is going to be our mechanical filtration. And then the rest of the tank is going to be biomedia. We're going to put biomedia in here. We've already got the max spec bio blocks in there. I might add a couple of sheets of filter foam just to potentially capture any last bits of debris that misses the filter sock section or the filter cup section. But then the rest of this is all going to be biomedia. I think I can comfortably get about 5 or 6 kilos of media, so there's going to be plenty for the goldfish. We've also got our D&D temperature controller, which is currently showing the tank is sitting at 22.5 degrees. We've got our UV on, and the last thing I'm going to do before we head to the LFS is add some carbon. So I'm going to get a little bag of activated carbon, place it into the sump just to eliminate any potential contamination that this tank may have had or any kind of chemicals that could have got in. It's not only going to help remove those chemicals, but it's also going to give the water clarity, that extra sparkle before we add the fish. But enough on the filter, let's head to the shop and let's see what they've got. So coming into the store, we're going to head straight over to the fancy goldfish section, past all of the dry goods, and let's see if they got any in stock. Now this main head usually has some pretty good fancy goldfish in. and I think they have had a new shipment in. Now I'm not going to do a normal store tour of the shop, I'm literally just going to focus on fancies, just to see if we can maybe get a few fish to get the tank started before we put some larger, more expensive fancies in. Got some pretty nice little calico cow ramp too. I'll try and include all the labels of the tank so you can see the pricing as well. These quite nice little tricolours. And then we just pretty much got most of the standard fish in at the moment. So nothing that's really jumping out to me. However, I have just spotted these tricolours in the sump down here. Now I'm going to have a good look through these because there are a few that are standing out to me. Some more of these sort of short body, short tail wrangler, more of the new style of fish. Now obviously with tricolours, with panda fish that are going to change, and these fish are all going to likely change to an orange, full orange or orange and white coloration. So if I do pick any, I'm really going to be picking them based on the wen shape on the head, the wen growth, the body shape, split fins, double tails, double anal fins. I'm really looking for some quality fish. Now there are a few that jump out. This one especially down here in the corner with the ruby red wen. And this guy's pretty nice as well. All look like they've got pretty good split fins. And these are priced at 35 each, I think, or 2 for 65. So pretty good price, and they're got to be a good 3 inches or so, 2.5 inches. Now I'll get some close-up footage of these, and we can see if there's any that really stand out. We're going to go with this one here. Got a really nice body shape to him, good wen. And then there was another one, see if you can spot him. Could be that one right at the back there, sorry about the reflection. I think those are the two I'm going to go with. Good body shapes, good wen growth, nice fins, and there'll be some good fish to get the tank started. So let's get them bagged up, let's get them home, and then we can start acclimating to the aquarium and see how we get on. I think it was this one here, maybe this one. I think it might be this guy here. Yeah, I think it's this guy.
Thank you, then. No bother. 1987 to 2025. Tide is no stranger to stains. It's got to be Tide. Now boosted. Slay the season with savings at the Pro Auto Service and Tire Center. Get 5 free, get 1 on select Cooper tires. Buy 1, get 1 on select Nexus tires. And save $110 on select Goodyear tires. Visit Monroe.com today. Offers end December 31st. ProPlan. Fuel for life. Because exceptional nutrition fuels more than days in your life. It fuels for life in your days. Explore now.
And we are back from Maidenhead Aquatics. So I've got the new goldfish in the bag here, which I'm pretty excited to finally have some fancy goldfish again. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take them out of the bag, and then we can get them acclimated to the aquarium. So I'm just going to remove the lid off of the tank, and then they can just sit in there. Probably acclimate them for around half an hour or so. They were in around 24 degrees of water. and this tank is sitting at around 23 degrees at the moment. So I'm going to leave them in there for now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the cupboard doors and I'm going to get some cycled media from the Monsterfish Mega Tank into this aquarium, so we've got that bacteria cycle, and then we won't have to worry about cycling this tank. We won't get any ammonia or nitrite problems. So I'm going to get on with that now, get a few bags of media in, and then I'm going to slowly fill it up over the next few weeks, getting a nice amount of media in there for the next fish that we add to the tank. Now, whilst the fish are acclimating, I'm going to be adding the bio-media to the sump. So I've got a bucket, you can't really see, with about, I don't know, 4 kilos of alpha block in it maybe. And I've got some media bags which I ordered last week. So I'm going to be cleaning the alpha block in some tank water, and then I'm just going to be sorting it out into these media bags and then placing it into the sump. Now, I did add the carbon into the tank last night, so that was going to help take out any potential impurities in the water, any chemicals, and we've got these media bags as well. I've also got the coarse, medium and fine filter sponges. So I'm going to add those to the front of the tank, put a new piece of filter fleece in, just into this front section here, and then I'm going to add the biomedium, and then when the 2 filter cups turn up, I can add those into this section of the sump, fill those with the filter fleece, and then we'll have our fine mechanical filtration, we'll have our sponges, which we'll be cleaning out every, I don't know, 2 months, every 6 to 8 weeks, and then we'll have the rest of the section filled with the biomedium. So I'm going to get sorting that biomedium into these filter bags now, and then we can release the fish into the aquarium. I've got all of the alpha block in, so it's now time to cut these filter foams to size and put them into that first chamber. And then, as mentioned, when those filter cups arrive, I can put some fresh filter frost in there. They'll be coming the next day or 2, and then that will really help to polish the water. And there we have it. The sump is now complete, apart from obviously the filter cups that still haven't just arrived yet. So I've got those filter foams in the first section, and I've got the bag of carbon just holding them into position. They're quite tightly packed in the sides, it's just they were falling over a little bit. So I put the carbon in there. Obviously, ideally, I would like the carbon at the end of the filtration cycle, as it's not going to get clogged by any dirt and debris. But once we've got those filter cups in there with the filter fleece, they're going to take all of the fine particulate out of the water, and then anything that manages to get its way through to the filter sponges, they're going to really polish it off. Obviously, in an ideal world, you would have the sponges first, then you would have the filter fleece. However, I like to change the filter fleece every single week, which means that the sponges really don't get that dirty. Now, if you wanted to clean your filter, I don't know, once a month, then what you would do is you'd have your sponges, you'd have your coarse, medium, fine, then your filter fleece. However, I don't like to clean the filters every month. I like to make sure the water is as spotless as possible, and that is the reason why we run the sump in this way. So let's head up to the main display and let's add our fish to the new Fancy Goldfish aquarium. It's time to release the Fancy Goldfish into the new Fancy Goldfish aquarium. They've been acclimating for around half an hour now. Now all I'm going to do is just literally use my hands to remove them from the bag. As they are such slow-moving fish, I'm not going to bother with a net or anything. And we'll let them settle in for probably 24 hours or so, and then we can come and check up on them and see how they are doing. So here's the first one. And this is the second one. Now it's definitely a great feeling to have Fancy Goldfish back on the channel, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these guys do in the aquarium, and then hopefully we can get some more in the near future. But I'll catch back up with you guys in 24 hours, see how they're doing, and then we can take a little bit of a closer look at them, maybe even give them some food. And we are back. It is actually the evening of the next day now, so our 2 new tricolour Oranda have settled nicely into the aquarium, and they're doing really, really well. Now, the tank is a tiny bit cloudy still, and I have adjusted the outflow of the filter just to give a little bit more aeration. Haven't quite decided if I should put any sort of air stones or an air bar in. Let me know down in the comment section what you think, and maybe if I should put one in or not. and we're going to be giving them a feed on camera. Now, I actually have this bag of Kenta goldfish food, which I was given on my trip in Thailand about a year and a half ago now, and I haven't opened it, so we're actually going to be giving the goldfish some Kenta food, and hopefully they're gonna eat it. But I'm really excited to be feeding some fancy goldfish for, well, in my home in the first time in about 2 years now, and I can't wait to see how this tank progresses. Now, these are the first fish to go in the aquarium. Now, they are definitely more towards a high grade fish, but I'm not sure if I plan to keep these long term. Obviously, we've added the mature filter media to the sump, and these are going to help get the tank nice and cycle, build up the bacteria levels, get the tank nice and stable, and get some equilibrium there before I start to add some slightly larger fish, some slightly more higher quality fish than the fish I plan to build my collection with. But enough talking, let's give these guys some food and see if they take it. Now I'm going to open the bag of Kenta goldfish food up, and hopefully they will swim over to the camera and take some. Now, I don't know if I mentioned slightly earlier in the video, but I did decide to opt for these goldfish because although they weren't super high quality, they were still quite nice fish. They've got double anal fins, they've got nice split caudal fins, they've got really good wen development for their size, they've got good body structures, good body shapes as well, and they are overall pretty nice quality fish. Now I know I did mention earlier in the video that as they are tricolour, they are going to change, and they're going to change from that black coloration and eventually turn into a orange and white fish. But I'm not too fussed about that. They're the first fish to go into the tank. They're an overall nice quality, and it'll be interesting to see how they develop. Now, I can see they haven't gone for the food, but I'm hoping that over the next few minutes they'll sniff the food out, they'll come over and they'll start picking at it. But I will keep an eye on them, see how they get on, and hopefully they walk towards the Kenta food. I know they probably haven't been eating this kind of food so far, but we'll see if they get onto it, and hopefully they will start taking it. I'm going to wrap up the video there, and I'm sure we'll do plenty more feeding videos in the future, and I'm sure you'll get many more goldfish for this aquarium. And that is it for today's video. Let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of the new Oranda. Did you like them? Do you think I should have gone with another style of goldfish? I know we had quite a lot of comments on which goldfish to add in the last video on this tank, so I really do appreciate every single comment, and I do reply to every single comment out there. And that is it for today's video, so thank you for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fishing.
Feeling healthy, by leaps and bounds. Making a dinner that makes them full fed, and giving your best friend the best nutrients for their best life. Science is that.
What's up guys, welcome back to Aquatic Elements. Now, it's been quite a while since I've done some videos on the channel, and do not worry, I am not going anywhere. I'm going to try and get a few more videos out this year, and then next year I plan to do quite a lot of different trips as well to get loads of videos out for you. But business has been really busy, and it has been a struggle to get the social media content out for you guys at home. But I'm going to try and make some more videos and do my best. Now, in today's video, you probably saw from the title and thumbnail, it is New Fish Day. Now, I haven't really done any updates on this new goldfish aquarium, may have seen a few on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook if you follow us there. But this tank has been doing really, really well. We've got a massive green hair algae carpet on the bottom, which I absolutely love. Let me know down below, what do you think of it? And the two fish that we used to help cycle this aquarium and get it started have definitely put on a lot of weight and are actually looking really, really good. So the tank has been set up now. I think it must have been around, it must be around 7 weeks now since this tank's been set up. And I've just been told that my local fish store has got some really nice fancy goldfish. So let's head over there and let's see what they've got in store and hopefully we can get some new fish for this aquarium. So I'm going to hit the road and I'll catch you when we get there. I've just arrived at Maidenhead Aquatics Weybridge. I'm going to go and head around and check out what fancies they've got in. So I've been told they've got some pretty nice new fancies in, which I am excited to see. Now this shop definitely gets in loads of really, really nice fancy goldfish. And they always stock quite a nice selection, nice different varieties from Ryukin to Ranchu, telescopes, Blackmores. So we've got a few little Ranchu up top. There's an absolutely massive Blackmore there with a few telescope eyes. And then we've got some pretty high quality black Ranchu here. These guys are looking really, really nice. Apologies about the reflection. And then we've got sort of more of the smaller standard fancies. And then we've actually got some pretty nice Ryukin here. These guys have got really nice body shapes to them. And they're 15 quid or 2 for 27. So it's pretty good. Nothing that sort of caught my eye just yet. However, I have just noticed in the sump tank down here where I bought my first 2 fancy goldfish to sort of get the tank started, to seed the tank, we've got some absolutely stunning jumbo short body, short tail Oranda. Now it's quite hard to gauge the size. If I put my hand there, you can see they're a good, I'd say 5 to 6 inches. And there's 6 of those guys in there. Now it looks like we've got 3 red and white. That one's even a jade seal with the white wen on top. We've also got a few Sakura scales, which are like a nacreous based red and white fish with the sort of in-ring or metallic scales dotted in there. Now these guys are absolutely lovely, and I've actually been looking for some short tail around for the new tank. I didn't really want to go for a longer tail fish, as I don't quite have the space in that 400 litre system. But these short tail guys are going to be perfect. Now I think I'm actually going to get some of these, buy some of these and get them home. So let's get them bagged up and then we can sort of have a little closer look at them when I get back home and see what they look like. But they overall look really, really nice quality, all perfect fins, nice coloration. I know they've been settled here for around a week now as well. I've been told that they're all feeding, but they've got a really nice wen development, and overall they're looking really happy and healthy. So I think it's time to get them bagged up, and I can't wait to get some really nice jumbo fish in the new goldfish aquarium.
Get any size Hot Pilot coffee plus 2 packs of Hostess snacks for just $5. Only at Pilot and Flying J.
Danny showed this NFL mom a clip about her son.
Who has the worst smelling locker? We gotta go fix this right now.
Rinse that odor.
It does smell a lot better.
Rinse impossible odors out in one wash.
A Chewy Pharmacy order is on the way for Kuda. The good boy whose dislike of taking meds is matched only by his love of cheese. So Mom pairs the meds Chewy delivers with the finest fromage. And thanks to Chewy's licensed pharmacists, Mom knows these are quality meds for a quality boy. All Gouda knows is it's delicious. For quality meds at great prices, for life with pets, there's Chewy Pharmacy.
So, last night, Hebrews 10. Honestly, nothing better than when a guy brings this up.
I seriously can't stop thinking about him.
Tim's. Thank you for the best day of my life. PSA to guys out there, we love bringing Hims.
If he pops into these, I know what's coming.
Hims. Hims. for longer, better times in the bedroom. Get started today at Hicks.com.
And we are back with our new goldfish, and I cannot wait to get them into the aquarium. So I'm going to get them out of the poly box, float them in the top of the water, and you can see exactly what I decided to put up. Now I'm just going to remove the removable lids so we can float the goldfish in the top of the aquarium. I might have to remove some more of the lids, but here's the first two fish. Now once they go in, we will get a closer look at them, and we will be able to see what they look like. And I'm hoping that we can fit all 3 bags in this section of the tank. But it's really going to bring this tank to life with adding some new fish. And I've just been on the lookout for the right fish, and luckily my local maidenhead had them. So we've got 6 new jumbo short body short tail aranda. Now I will turn the lights off just for acclimation because I don't want them to be too stressed out. I'm probably going to leave them in here for around 20-30 minutes to acclimate. Now you might have heard in the previous clip when we were at the shop that they are in around 20 to 23 degrees of water temperature, and this tank is sitting at around 22.5 to 23 degrees, so it's perfect. There's not going to be much temperature difference for them. But I'll let them acclimate, and then I'll come back and we can check them out and actually release them into the tank and get a little bit of a close-up look. Now I've just put the lights back on and it's time to get the fish in the bag. As you can see, a few of them are on their side, and that's literally just the way that they are in the bag. There's nothing to worry about. I've made sure to check them. They haven't got any swim bladder issues or anything like that. So it's just where they've been packed, so they can't quite swim properly. So I'm going to take the bands off of these bags, and then we can add them to the tank. And then after they've been acclimated, maybe tomorrow, I'll give them some food and we can have a little bit of a better look at them. But I'm really excited to see these guys go into the tank and actually get a bit of colour into the aquarium. They're very slow moving fish. They're nice and easy to move from bags. So I'm just simply going to roll the bag down. I'm going to pick them up out of the bag with my hand. It's not causing any damage to their fins. And release to the aquarium. And then I'll just remove this bag also because I don't want that sitting in my tank. Now we've got 3 red and white fish, and then 3 sakura, which are also red and white in colour. Now I'm not sure how many males and females we've got, but I'm sure we'll be able to tell once these guys are settled into the aquarium. And as you can see, removing them with your hands is much easier than with a net. And it saves the fins getting damaged and having any issues. So time for the last 2 to go in. Now with any fancy goldfish, I would always recommend starving for 24 hours just to let them settle into your aquarium, get used to the water parameters, and ensure there's no issues when transporting them with their digestive system. I'm going to take this bag out, let them settle in, probably turn the lights out, and then I'll catch you guys tomorrow and we will get
A few moments later.
And we are back. It's now been 48 hours since I added the new goldfish to the aquarium, and I am absolutely loving these guys. They have such presence in the aquarium, and it really helps to fill the tank out. Now we are going to be giving them some food on camera, and I thought I couldn't mention too much about the algae carpet, the hair grass, I guess, hair algae carpet, but I'm actually going to do a separate video on how to grow an algae carpet. Maybe you want it for another aquarium, not even just a goldfish tank, so I will do a video on that at some point. Now we definitely have a mix of male and female. I believe we have around 2 females and 4 males. However, I need to have a bit of a closer look. We did have a little bit of breeding activity when they went into the aquarium, and obviously that new environment, new water stimulated them to breed. Now, I still haven't fully decided if I'm going to keep the two smaller goldfish, or whether I'm just going to stick with some large fish in this tank. But enough on that, let's bring the camera a little bit closer, let's put some food in, and I can show you close-up shots of the raptor. Now, I've just got some food in this little tube, which is the Kenta gas food. Now, I'll bring the camera a little bit closer. Right, they're already really well, as you can see. Now, the water is ever so slightly cloudy. I have just cleaned the glass, and the clouds don't feel like very finished in the glass. You can see down here that it's 22 days, which is obviously great for the power part. You can really see that now there. Well, I'd like to show you a little bit here. Overall, they are doing really well. No injuries, no issues at all. And these guys are exciting to watch. So pretty, and I'm sure as the weeks go by, they're going to get more and more used to feed them and get more and more tame. Maybe I will add a few other colours, maybe some calicos, maybe black. I am thinking about moving on. They're absolutely lovely, really, really nice quality. It would be nice to have similar looking size and similar looking quality of fish in the area. But overall, really happy with them. They're great, and I can't wait to see them settle into this tank a little bit more and watch them develop and grow. And that is it for today's video of the new fancy goldfish. Now, for the new viewers of this channel, I've actually got loads, maybe hundreds of videos all on fancy goldfish from a few years ago on the channel, and I'm sure I'm going to make some more up-to-date videos on the fancy goldfish because they are a fish that I always revert back to, and I just really enjoy keeping them. They're really peaceful, they're really friendly, they've got colour, they've got beautiful personalities, they're fairly straightforward to keep if you keep them in the right environment and conduct recreation. The massive shout out to the Canadian Head Aquatics Weight Bridge for getting those amazing batches in, and they do get some pretty cool batches in, so make sure to go and check them out as well. But that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up and happy.
Hackles and crackles in silver snatchers. We have previously talked about other well-known hackles, black hacksaw, whatever titles you like to give them, with the likes of Gary McKinnon, Full Hacker, or Dr. Chaos. But this man has very often been crowned king of hacking, or at least crowned as one of the most famous hackers in the whole world, with people both fearing and loving him. But love of Peyton has had a massive influence on the cybersecurity industry as well as the hacking community itself, through his adventures as a master of trickery, a manipulator of people, and their systems. The Ghost in the Wire. That's a reference. Kevin Mitnick, the world's most wanted hacker. Please leave a like and a comment on the algorithm. But before we get started, this video is brought to you by Raycon. With Raycon earbuds, you can greatly enhance your listening experience with amazing quality for half the price of other premium audio brands. New everyday earbuds are constantly improving with a rubber feel that is both functional yet aesthetically pleasing. Raycons have been specifically modified through many design iterations to seamlessly fit comfortable ears, as well as including varying optimized gel tips for a comfortable yet solid fit. Previous customers have given over 50,000 five-star reviews online. I really enjoy my Raycon. Great sound quality and bass, and also because they never fall out during my workout or any other activity. And Raycons are also more adaptable than ever. Built-in lighting, which you can take pulse and push the button, and it also includes easy-to-use media controls so you don't have to take your phone out constantly. They are also compatible with both Siri and Alexa, and include 3 default audio profiles for you to customize your listening experience. Enjoy your music and videos with high quality bass and passive noise isolation for true immersion. Raycons are also resistant to sweat and water, so they can survive being accidentally put through the washing machine or being dropped in a bucket. Raycons offer up to 4 hours of playtime and 32 hours of battery life. So if you want to get some top-tier earbuds while also supporting my channel, then click my link in the description box down below, or go to buyraycon.com/Dankula to get an exclusive deal of up to 15% off your order. Kevin Mitchell was born on the 6th of August 1963 in sunny California, but he didn't have the best start. Growing up as a child, Kevin's father split with his mother Shirley, while Kevin was only 3 years old, leaving him with no father figure. Thankfully, he did see him on occasion, but since his father lived out of state while Kevin grew up in San Francisco Valley, this left him with only a few people to look up to in life. His father apparently did care about Kevin, but it wasn't a completely broken relationship, although his father wouldn't be more involved in his life until he was 13 years old when his father moved back to Los Angeles. As for his mother, she would support Kevin and the family by taking up various waitress jobs in delis around Ventura Boulevard, which is located in San Francisco. Although Kevin would have several more disruptions to his childhood, for one, he spent many years in solitude due to him and his mother moving around so often, meaning he didn't have enough time to make friends during his early years. Although this wouldn't be the only time that Kevin would spend in solitude, but we can get into that later. Showing great intuition as a child, Kevin did somewhat well with his teachers, informing his mother that he was in the top 1 percentile in mathematics and spelling, years ahead of the other kids in his class. But he wasn't perfect in class, as he was very often behind back, not being able to cope with such a restricted and academic environment. So everything seemed somewhat normal for his childhood, although it wouldn't be as complicated. Kevin's mother had 3 different husbands and various boyfriends during Kevin's time growing up, and out of those partners, one abused Kevin, and another who actually worked in law enforcement molested him. Besides the rough start of life, what actually got Kevin into acting? Well, let's say it was a little thing called magic. No, seriously, literally, magic. Apparently, when Kevin was in his youth, a neighbour girl that had a crush on him would invite him over to her house, and she would dance with him when naked. But Kevin did not have time for any of that thought behavior. He was much more interested in the girl's father. Not like that. Not like that. The girl's father was an amateur magician, and he would show Kevin magic tricks. And these tricks fascinated Kevin, not for the usual reasons that most of us enjoy magic tricks. Kevin was a lot more interested in the art of trickery and deception. So it wasn't just the act itself, it was the whole spectacle of openly deceiving large groups of people and then loving them. That set an unconscious love for deception deep within Kevin. Luckily for Kevin, the nearest magic store wasn't too far from him. It was just a mere bike ride. So you can see the domino effect start. Kevin would regularly go there and use it as his spare time hacker. This would be his doorway into hacking, or at least the first steps in setting Kevin's mindset on deception, as his technological skills wouldn't fully develop until he was in high school. But for now, he can train another important skill, one that is used to great effect in both marketing and hacking. Social engineering. Although Kevin would very often ride his bike to the magic store, he would sometimes use the bus, which would start the next steps in his hacking story. This is where Kevin would meet Bob. Bob, the bus driver. The story goes that Kevin went on the bus as usual, and he was wearing a t-shirt that said CBOs do it on the hill. CB meaning central bank rail, sometimes called handbill. And there were a lot of old hobbyists who would buy and set up their own radio equipment to broadcast to stations or to talk to fellow radio enthusiasts all over the country. It's why Radio Shack started, and the hobby reached its peak in Kevin's youth during the 80s, which is why it's even seen in Stranger Things. And Bob noticed it, so he told Kevin that he found a Motorola handheld which apparently a police radio. Kevin, of course, at a young age, thought he could use this device to listen into police frequencies, but this was just all. Although it turned out that Bob was an avid handmade hobbyist, and his enthusiasm for the subject was passed on to Kevin. Bob would introduce Kevin to the early stages of handmade, even showing him how to make fake phone calls by utilizing an autopad. This would lead Kevin to many classes and eventually earning a handmade license, which at the time was a pretty big deal for someone in his age. This would lead Kevin to not only be interested in the hobby just at surface level, but make him take a deep interest into the inner workings of phone systems and how these companies actually operate. This would even affect his attendance at high school, because he would very often skip classes to go to the local ham radio store and read about the stuff and learn more. You can slowly see from Kevin's childhood the building blocks of a hacker put themselves into place. High intellect, test of magic perception, until finally falling in love with communications technology. But we get to see these things combined together. Although the first stage of Kevin's hacking escapades would truly start with his first use of social engineering. Remember how Kevin would ride the bus? Well, he started going around California, and of course at the time, buses seemed like the best option. As Kevin used the buses more, he soon would figure out the system. In those days, they would utilize a punch system. Each transfer ticket would have whatever punch correlated to the type of ticket and the area. So Kevin just thought to himself, why don't I just punch all the tickets? And so
It's like you're something like, I like you beginning first, Alex.
The crater is our best bet.
I know. I'll take care of you both to the last breath.
Try gummy vitamins from Nature. The #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
Smells like driftwood. Smells like driftwood. Okay. Swing the season with savings at the Auto Service and Tire Center. Get 5 3 get 1 on select Cooper tires. Buy 1 get 1 on select Nixon tires. And save $110 on select Goodyear tires. At Rome.com today. Offers on December 31st. Swing the season with savings at Victory Tire Auto Service Center. Get 5 get 1 on select Cooper tires. Buy 1 get 1 on select Nixon tires. And save $110 on select Goodyear tires. Visit VictoryTire.com today. Offers in December 31st.
So he did. But it wasn't that. He first had to learn where he could get the specific punch that the driver used, as well as a bunch of blank transfers. So Kevin reckons he can probably find a bunch of blank transfers in the trash containers outside the bus station. And as for the punch, Kevin would use a little bit of social engineering to go in and just ask where he might find this specific type of punch by pretending he needed it for a school project. And the first stage of the plan worked. The bus driver obviously thought this fresh-faced young boy couldn't possibly be up to no good, and he told Kevin the specific store that he could buy this punch from. So Kevin went to the store and got the punch. Phase 1 complete. But now he needed blank transfers, so he would have to go on another little adventure to find those. So he went to a large garbage container just outside the bus station. He climbed up into it, and as he suspected, jackpot. The bin was absolutely filled with these blank transfers. Bus drivers just dumped in there at the end of their shift. So now Kevin had everything he needed to forge his own tickets. But of course, Kevin had to test the forged tickets to make sure that they actually worked. And they did. Kevin was able to travel all over California using buses for free. Because Kevin had also managed to memorize the correct ways to punch the tickets by watching the bus drivers and seeing how they would do it. And all of this was achieved by a certain art given the technical term of dumpster diving, which wouldn't be the last time that Kevin would do something like that. Gain some information or find some other hidden gems that he would exploit later. So would Kevin leave California and go on big adventures elsewhere using this exploited bus system? No, he just used it to travel around the world. But during his travels, he made a friend by the name of Richard Williams. And funnily enough, Richard was basically doing the same thing as Kevin. He was writing cars for free. He was doing it legally because it turns out that Richard's dad was a bus driver. So Richard just got to ride the bus for free. Richard and Kevin would go on many adventures together. Two jackpots. Kevin, to put it lightly, described Richard as obese. So during their trips, it was essential that they would stop off and get the infamous super taco up to 6 times a day. These habits would soon be taught to Kevin, leading to him getting a little bit chubby. This eventually wouldn't go unnoticed as Kevin tells the story like this. It wasn't long before the pigtailed blonde girl on the school bus told me, "You're kinda cute, but you're fat. You ought to lose some weight." Did I take her sharp but unquestionably constructive advice to heart? No. And that's good care. We should never care what others think. But you may be thinking, what about his forged tickets? Did he ever get caught or get in trouble? Well, neither. The maniac, for some reason, even told his mum and dad what he was doing. And they both just said that it was clever and that showed initiative. Kevin even told the fucking bus drivers, who just laughed at the situation because of how this young man had actually managed to figure out and con the entire system. Did they report him? No, they didn't. Instead, they just gave him a bunch of attaboys. This also wouldn't be the last time that Kevin would be highly praised for his hacking or social engineering techniques. Besides Kevin's first act of social engineering, he lived a pretty normal childhood, and being Jewish, he had to have a bar mitzvah. Although he even commented that himself and many other Jewish families aren't very religious at all, but they'll still commonly practice certain traditions. Kevin just really wasn't that interested in religion, or he was kept out of evening school for apparently goofing off and always taking the piss out of the teachers. But the one thing that Kevin did practice other than learning to read the Torah was social engineering, but subconsciously. Kevin would mimic the rabbi to his ends, which of course probably just found it funny. But in reality, this was another way of increasing his social engineering skills, just like the speech perk in Elder Scrolls games. Now, I won't do a stereotypical impersonation of the rabbi because I don't want to go to prison again, but here we are. Being able to mimic the way that other people act, speak, or present themselves allows for the social engineer to manipulate them into a sense of comfort, of familiarity. Of course, in this case, this is just a kid having fun, but it can take a certain knack to act or present yourself differently in a hacking scenario, either to fish for information or manipulate your way into restricted areas. Because trying to do classic method of just walking into somewhere with a high-vis vest and a clipboard can only get you so far. If you get confronted, you need to know how to act the part. Now, although he got the move from his previous school, he would soon move into James Monroe High School in the area. Kevin would have another two major influential establishments that would further develop his skills as a hacker. Firstly, high school, and secondly, a local survival bookstore. Starting off with the bookstore, Kevin was an avid reader, along with having idols such as Houdini, which of course ties in with his interest in magic, and Jim Rockford, the fictional private detective. This would send Kevin deep into learning more about what he would call underground knowledge. You know, the type of knowledge that your government generally doesn't want you to know. So at the age of just 13, Kevin would regularly visit his bookstore, and he would plethora of books. And these books wouldn't consist of your typical fantasy adventures, no. These books would be the books that Kevin would read to sculpt the skills he required to pursue his own adventures in good life. Two books in particular included Paper Trip by Barry Reed, which taught Kevin certain details on how to create a new identity for himself by using the birth certificates of people that had passed away. This, of course, became very useful to Kevin later in life, but we'll get into that later. And the other book that he learned an awful lot of knowledge from was called Big Brother Game by Scott French. This was the key book in which Kevin learned a variety of things, like how to get a hold of information such as driving and property records, how to get banking information, and even how to get information from police departments. This book Kevin has described as his Bible. In this den of underground knowledge, Kevin wouldn't just learn about the art of forgery or how particular administrative bypasses can be accomplished. He would also learn more physical skills, like lock picking. He would actually sell lock picking skills, and of course, Kevin wanted to buy them. As you may think, come on now, they aren't going to sell a 13-year-old boy a lock picking set. Kevin will quickly did. So Kevin would, again, just like his books, practice and understand the meaning behind the cells he was able to obtain his books. So, as a teenager, he would regularly go down to tenant storage containers in his apartment building and practice picking locks. Sometimes even completely removing the locks and then swapping them around on the containers, which Kevin found very, very funny. His neighbours, however, did not find it very funny. But they had no idea what he was doing. Besides the part-time tomfoolery at high school, Kevin would regularly take his handheld ham radio and use it during lunch. Now, at the time, teachers probably described Kevin as the kid that would do unexpected things, probably due to his quiet. Kevin summed it up himself rather well when he said, quote, "When the other kids were fixing televisions and TV repair shop, I was following in Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak's footsteps and building a blue box that would allow me to manipulate the phone network and even make free phone calls." Simply put, Kevin had all the right beginnings to make him one of the best and most revered hackers in the world. And for those who don't know what a blue box is, I won't go into great detail, but it was basically a device hackers, or commonly known back then as phone phreakers, would use to manipulate phone systems around the world, but most commonly in the US. They would be popularized by well-known early hackers such as Steve Wozniak of Apple and John Draper, also known as Captain Crunch, who could possibly be a madman himself. But Kevin's start in phone phreaking itself wouldn't have even happened without the introductory courses given to him by a fellow student by the name of Stephen Shalita. Stephen knew the basics of how to phone phreak and Kevin didn't, but unlike Kevin, he didn't understand things on such a complex level. What do I mean by that? Stephen might have introduced this method of hacking using surface level knowledge, but once Kevin was hooked, he very quickly surpassed Stephen in skill and knowledge on the matter. Once Kevin had his feelers out and got on some footing, he soon learned that there was what you could possibly call a social network used by other fellow phone phreakers via the phone, of course. Kevin befriended a lot of connections with them, and they would even all attend get-togethers together with other people of the same hobby. But sadly, some of the phone phreaks were, as Kevin put it himself, actual freaks, as in they were socially inept and generally uncool. But that's to be expected. So you're probably thinking, come on, Danny, when did the people get involved and get into that, you fucking swimmers? But Kevin initially didn't even enroll in the computer course offered at his school, since he didn't have the relevant maths or science courses to qualify. But once Kevin was introduced to the computing teacher and he saw how much Kevin had already learned on his own, along with how keen he was, he let Kevin join the class. Kevin was now able to again learn a new skill and adapt to a new set of tools for him to understand. The computer. He started learning Fortran and BASIC to older forms of programming languages for those of you that aren't too familiar with coding, and only a few weeks into the class, he had actually written a script to steal passwords which would then be stored in a secret file. Nothing too complex, but at the time that was a pretty amazing feat for a teenager who had only been doing this for a couple of weeks. When he was asked why he did it, all he said was, "My friends and I thought it would be cool to get everyone's password." Well, alright then, you know, at least it's not a sinister reason. He just thought it would be cool because he was just doing it because he could. And this is one thing that I've come to learn about Kevin. It's that throughout all his life, there's usually not a complicated reason to why he does things. It usually all just boils down to because I wanted to see if I could. But sadly, this time, Kevin would get caught. All because of a snitch. Eventually, one of the lab monitors had snitched on him to the system administrator. And the next thing you know, 3 police officers came to the school and held Kevin until his mother could come and get him. However, the police soon released Kevin without any charges. Why is that? Because there were no charges to be given. Cybercrime and hacking laws didn't exist yet. So, since no laws existed yet to charge him under, they just let him go. But he was still banned from the computer labs and he was ordered to stay off campus. Between his antics in high school, Kevin would very often perform various prank calls when he was phone phreaking. Although to do these prank calls, a lot of which would be international calls, it would have cost Kevin's mother hundreds of dollars. So he avoided the cost by using a local ham radio auto package. Now, this would allow Kevin to make phone calls whenever he wanted. However, a control operator at one of the local telephone companies noticed the strange amount of digits that Kevin would key into the line when he made a call, which was an indication that he was using an auto. So the control operator eventually phoned Kevin's mother to complain about it. while this phone call was happening, another phone freak was listening in on the line, because that was another thing that phone freaks could do. They could listen in on other people's private phone calls. And he was intrigued by what Kevin was doing. And this is when Kevin eventually met Louis DePain, also known by his hacker name, Roscoe. This would be the start of a hacking duo for life, with Roscoe and Kevin, who was known at the time by his phone freak handle, Condor. Apparently it was enough for a movie he liked called 3 Days of Condor. Unbeknownst to Kevin, this would be the tipping point in his soon-to-be hacking career, as up to this point he had been building up his skills and knowledge of communications technologies like ham radios and phone networks, as well as computers, and of course, being key to his future success, social engineering. With all of these components slowly being pieced together, all Kevin needed now was more motivation to spark the flame of his interest in the game. And what do I mean by that? Well, like a runner's high or a kleptomaniac walking into Tesco with a can of tuna chopped up, Kevin got a thrill from the entire game of hacking. Reconnaissance, problem solving, and of course, capturing the sacred fruit of the tech world. But what would that fruit be? Well, we will find out soon enough. But none of this would happen without a few connections and people to network with. And thankfully, Roscoe was just the man that Kevin needed, and they both very quickly became friends. So now Kevin and Louis become partners in crime, or partners in cybercrime. You could argue that half of the stuff that they did together was mostly practical jokes or attempts at trying to be the top dogs of the hacking business. For example, one hack that Kevin loves talking about, which he and Louis would do together regularly, was the McDonald's hack. Now remember, these two were more than competent in manipulating different forms of telecommunication systems. So basically, the hack goes like this. They found out how to modify a portable 2-meter radio. So, you know how in drive-thrus at McDonald's where you have the little speaker where you place your order? You can already see where this is going, can't you? Well, they managed to figure out how to manipulate the speaker and tune their frequency to the same frequency used by McDonald's drive-thru radios, so that the customers would hear them instead. So they would drive to McDonald's and park in the car park or in a nearby area just close enough so they could see who was driving up to the drive-thru radio. Kevin and Louis would even bring along their friends because of just how hilarious this was. And to give a few examples of some of the things that Kevin would do, sometimes he would say things like, "Well done, you're the 100th customer, your meal is free." Well, the customer would then, of course, make a giant order since it was free. And then they would be very upset once they got to the window and realised it was not free and they had to pay for a plate. Or if Kevin could tell the person was a little bit on the more rotund side of the spectrum, he would say, due to the weight of the occupant in this vehicle, I recommend that you order them in salad. Or sometimes he and his friends would just put on a really thick Indian accent that was barely understandable to the customers. Another thing that they did in the McDonald's drive-thru, I'm sure that all of you have tried to order a milkshake or an ice cream and the machine is always potentially fucking broken. Well, Kevin would tell them that the machines were broken, but then he would say, "Hey, how about we give you a complimentary juice instead? Would you like apple juice?" And the customer would always accept. And then Kevin would start playing a recording of someone pissing. Sometimes cops would show up to the drive-thru so they could get themselves something to eat. Now, usually pranksters would do the smart thing and wait until the cops leave before they continue with the prank. But not Kevin. He would either say, "I'm sorry, we don't serve cops here, you'll have to go to Jack in the Box," or he would start shouting, "Hide the cocaine, hide the cocaine," down the radio. After too many angry and perplexed customers, the manager figured out that someone was messing with the radio. So he ran outside to take a look. The manager then proceeded to look into the speaker itself to see if anyone had tampered with it. So of course, Kevin saw a golden opportunity and screamed down the radio, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Which made the manager shit himself and jump back about 10 feet. At the time of these McDonald's hacks, Kevin was only around 16 or 17 years old. So, as we mentioned earlier, Kevin needed connections to both other hackers and, of course, new networks to hack. Through those, he met a few other phone freaks, such as Susan Edley, aka Susan Thunder, a well-known female hacker. Yes, turns out they do. And what has it that her hacking reflected not her skills, but her thighs? That's probably not true, but it would end up going on to form a small group of hackers known as the Moscow Gang. To get an in within the hacking sphere, you had to prove yourself to other hackers and get their approval. This is a way to weed out the script kiddies and people that really don't even understand the technology and mechanisms behind what they were supposed to be exploiting. And of course, they would all play a game of who's got the biggest cyber knob by seeing who could pull off the most impressive feat. So, for example, if you breach the system of a small office or your own school, that's not that big of a deal. But breach a huge software company's network and potentially gain some secret files or the Holy Grail source code. Now that's impressive, and that was the kind of stuff that got me noticed. So due to Kevin's age and being a newcomer to the hacking world, he would have to prove himself to the other hackers to get in with them. Though Kevin did have another issue at this time. You see, between his other various hacks, he would see some benefits and drawbacks to the phone field. Slowly but surely, the telephone companies would catch on to the various methods that the phone fields were using to communicate with each other. Or they would just have the suspicion that various users were up to something but they couldn't quite put their finger on. And Kevin wasn't excluded from this. One example that Kevin gives was during a phone call with another fellow freaker friend by the name of Steve Rhodes. They were calling between a diverted telephone line, and while they were chatting, all of a sudden they heard someone else on the line say, "We are monitoring." Immediately they both shit themselves and hung up. Who the fuck was that? The cops? Another phone speaker? Well, I've already spoiled it, but it turns out that the telephone company had been listening in to their conversation. So they called each other again, but this time on a direct connection, laughing at the attempts of the phone engineers trying to scare them, saying how stupid these phone engineers were. Until, again, they heard the exact same voice on the line say, "We are still monitoring." Although these were very talented phone freakers, they both get caught with their pants down, which eventually led to some backlash at home with Kevin's mother. Because not long after this, Kevin's mother received a letter from the telephone company along with a personal visit from the telephone company's head of security, warning her that if Kevin didn't stop his shenanigans, they would terminate their service for abusing their system. Now, I can't say that they were in the wrong, they were totally within their right to do so. So did Kevin stop? Nope, he absolutely did not. He kept going and he got caught again. So the company followed up with their warning and they terminated their service, which I'm pretty sure made Kevin's mother go absolutely ballistic at. But Kevin did reassure her not to worry because he had a plan up his sleeve to deal with it. And his solution was pretty basic, but also pretty smart. Kevin simply changed the door number. Like, quite literally went down to the hardware store, picked up a new set of numbers and replaced his old apartment number of 13 with 12B instead. He then called up the telephone company saying that there was a new unit added to the building and this new unit required a phone service to be installed. Even listing it under a fake name. And the name that Kevin picked, James Bond. So, just from that alone, you would think that the phone operator would have realised right away that all of this was bullshit. But note, instead the phone operator opened one contract under the name of James Bond. However, it did only take a few weeks for the phone company to realise that Kevin had goofed them once again. So, the telephone company actually opened a case file for Kevin. They were starting to keep a very keen eye on the 17-year-old hacker. So now we come to Kevin's first big hack. Now, as I said previously, Kevin needed a lot more networking with his hacking sphere to gain the more in-depth technological knowledge that he didn't already. So, this opportunity comes when he never gathered what maintaining many computers when he was handling his unified school district. This guy, along with his circle of fellow hackers, had the knowledge that Kevin needed, but this knowledge would not come from free. Consisting of all the computing stereotypes that you all imagine, they and their mighty network wisdom attracted this mission of Kevin's as he could do one quest for him. Hack into the ARC. The ARC is the name given to the systems used by the digital encryption company. Developers of both operating system called RSTs/Artist for short, which is coincidentally the operating system Kevin was used on previous systems, along with the one used in the many computer managed by one of his used hacking acquaintances. So, you can see where this is going. They did help evidence pointing to the actually gave him dialogue from the development teams at Arc, which they managed to get from another proxy friend who had previously worked in. But that wasn't really any help to Kevin at all, since the number was useless without a valid account number and password. So, with no credentials to log in with, how would Kevin get in? He couldn't. They knew that he would never be able to actually get it. They basically did this as a prank on Kevin. They gave him an impossible task. Kevin, of course, realised this and thought to himself, absolutely, Kevin had a plan. If he managed to figure out who the system administrator was, someone outside the dev team, then he would have a chance of getting it. After calling the broken switchboard in the area where the car was located, Kevin has to be put through to the computer. This, of course, was a very broad question, but with the gift of the gab, Kevin would navigate his way away from the switchboard straight to the system administrator. Well, Kevin was using the fake name Anton Chernow, which was the name of one of the key developers. Now, you might be asking, wouldn't they just hear Kevin's voice and go, that's not Anton? Well, you might not be smart patterns. You might know everyone's names, and you might know what everyone's voice sounds like. Different departments have a different story. They work in another area. You technically work together. They might be on another floor. And you might know their names, but you probably don't know their voices. So, Kevin really wants to shoot his shot and hoping for the best, praying that they would believe him. And they did. So Kevin was now talking to the system administrator, who thought that he was Anton Chernow. And Kevin told him, hey buddy, hey big guy, crazy story, someone must have deleted my access account. Could you do me a solid, sailor? Just create a new one for me? And they did. They just made him a brand new access account. But there was one teeny tiny issue. The credentials were sent to Chernow's email, which of course Kevin didn't have access to. Panicking, Kevin called up Jerry, the system administrator again, saying that he didn't get his email. So the system administrator just read out the credentials over the phone. The password, by the way, was buffoon. Ironic. Kevin then tried.
Really, call that, tell us where it hurts. Tip us clear?
Well, number one, selling key cool cooling patches covered?
Yes, e-coolers, are we there yet, Fast? Kobayashi Healthcare. If it hurts, we help.
There are kitchens. And then there's KitchenAid.
With Thrivent, your personal finances start with you, but their impact can reach even further. This Christmas, your money can be a force for good for the people, causes, and communities you love. Thrivent, where money means more.
Try to log in. It blocked. He had full remote access to the hub, and before anyone else caught on, he very quickly nabbed all of the passwords from the other development teams' logins. This was a massive achievement for Kevin, and it was likely that half of the hackers that had dared him to do this in the first place probably wouldn't have been able to do this themselves. So, of course, smugly, Kevin went back to them and claimed that he got it, which, of course, none of them did. That was until they met him. Kevin dialed into credentials and got on. None of them could believe that Kevin had done this. Then Kevin explained to them exactly how he did it. However, it wasn't a very happy ending compared to Kevin at the time. These other guys and on top of that, they ratted Kevin out to the company and gave the company Kevin's details. Kevin learned a big lesson there. And of course, still being a teenager at the time and wanting to impress his new friends, it makes sense why he might have trusted them so easily. But he still had his close friend Lewis, who was now actually dating Susan. Kevin would then move on to another man dating, and this time it was the US visa system. So, how did he accomplish this? Purely through social engineering. He basically called them up and said, oh hey, I'm from DEC support. There was a massive bug in the version of Steezy they were using, which could potentially make you lose all the data. Now this is a very common method of social engineering, because by putting pressure on individuals, especially ones with very long technical knowledge, it makes them panic. And when you panic, they tend to make bad decisions. And of course, no one, especially a large company, wants to lose data. So, after being carried through and being granted admin access, Kevin made a new account for himself and patched the code for him. And by patch, I really mean he just added a backdoor to their operating system. This meant that Kevin now had full access to their system, all from just a phone call. Of course, Kevin had shared this news with Lewis, but not with Susan. Kevin didn't seem to like Susan's information. The feeling was they did not. But, of course, Lewis would tell Susie what Kevin had done, spilling the whole tin of beans to her, which Kevin probably didn't do in the first place for good reason. Because shortly after this, Lewis and Susie broke up for unknown reasons. But after the breakup, Susie used the credentials that Lewis gave her to access the system unbeknownst to Kevin. Susie then apparently deleted most of the company's files, along with printing on all the printers in the building a message that said, Mitnick was here, Mitnick was here, fuck you, fuck you. Because she had always hated Kevin, she tried to get him caught and fucking over. But Kevin would never forget this. And when he was having another telephone company, he needed a telephone line that would ring several times and that would go unanswered. a common thing among hackers. Hey, I totally understand that. Here, call this department and check if you don't believe. But then no one answers the phone, etc., etc. And the story goes that Kevin knew a random payphone to call in the local area, and he knew the number off by heart. And an absolutely crazy coincidence, Kevin gave the payphone a quick call himself to test the line and also make sure that no one was nearby who could answer the phone and do the right one. But someone didn't. Guess who just so happened to be walking past the door? Susie. Once she picked up, Kevin recognized her voice right away. And Kevin immediately jumped on this golden opportunity. He said to her, "Hi Susie, it's Kevin. I just want you to know that I'm watching every move you make. Don't fuck with me. Bye." And then he hung up. I'm sure that would have absolutely scared her shitless, and it did get her off Kevin's back for the time being. Nothing had actually come of this hack until later on in some later charges that Kevin faced. But it's key to remember that he was still technically a minor at this time, so he wasn't too concerned about being caught. Until he was first caught. Remember previously when he was escorted off campus by the police, but they couldn't actually charge him with anything because there weren't any laws yet for cybercrime? Well, the rules of the game have been changed, and that there are now rules. Cybercrime laws were now in place. The year is 1981, and Mitnick and a few other folk freaks, hackers, and other such types all decide to gather together for a party at Shaky Street. They sit, converse about the companies they've hacked into, their methods, and they chat about other early stuff like ham radios, etc. You know, classic tech enthusiast stuff. On the discussion of what places they've hacked into, one place got mentioned, a place called Cosmos, or known as the computer system for mainframe operations in England. Basically, this was the central system used by Pacific Telecom, a local telephone company at the time. Kevin, Lewis, and another guy named Mark Ross realized that Cosmos building was actually nearby. It was just a few miles away. This, of course, tempted them far too much. They thought, how about we go down there and do a little scoop on it? Maybe a little bit of dust about it. So, keeping their team small to just three of them, they went to the 24-hour pharmacy to get the essentials: rubber gloves and flashlights, tools of any major export. After getting there and searching the bins, they didn't find anything of value. But then Kevin suggested, hey, why don't we try and get inside the rubber? Surely there will be something of much more value inside. And when I say value, I don't mean jewellery, money, or a secret vault or anything like that. Remember, the hackers, not robbers. They were relying on Kevin's social engineering skills to get them. So they decided, fuck it, let's get them back. So Kevin walks inside and sees a security guard. Younger man who seemed like he may partake in a little bit of devil's cabin from time to time. So Kevin walks up to the security guard and says to him that he and his friends were out there, and that Kevin actually works there, and he would just like to show his friends around his place of work. The guard then says to him, oh yeah, go right ahead, just remember to sign it. That was it. They were out. No IDs, no checks, nothing. They were out. As someone who used to work in security, fired on the spot. If I knew he'd done that, I would honestly, on the spot, I would rip his fucking head off and throw him out the building. Fired immediately. I would try and get his license taken off him for being so fucking stupid. That man has no business being a fucking guard. But after the three guys who were now in the fucking building searched around a little and mapped out the whole company's operations, suddenly there Cosmos. listings of every wire center in Southern California. This was jackpot, but it gets better. They found plenty of account credentials. Most importantly, they needed the admin credentials. And Kevin opened one folder, and there it was. A sheet literally labeled passwords. You guys were probably all expecting 12 computer screens with flashing green text matrix screensavers, sunglasses, trench coats, infected mushrooms playing in the background. You know, not just walking into a building, opening a filing cabinet, and pulling out a sheet of paper. So of course, Kev
That's just a fancy looking piece of pie. It's Gillette's best friend, and it's got the sharp blades less thick. Simple. Hey Joe, come feel my cheeks. Gillette, the best the man can get. Keeps getting better.
The Packed Better Sleep starts now with the Sleep Savings event at Rainbow Platinum. Save up to $500 on Tempur-Pedic and more. Or enjoy flexible lightings so you can buy now and pay over time. Don't miss the Sleep Savings event only at Rainbow Platinum.
Kevin was absolutely buzzing. They had found the mother of all orders, so they wouldn't fret over losing a couple of eggs. So their plan was to take the original copies of all the project files and make a new copy of the software. This was so they could replace the originals so that staff wouldn't come in and realise that they were missing, because then they would just reset all the passwords. It was important for the staff to not know that these files had been taken. But this would involve the use of a printer. So they needed to find a printer shop to then copy the documents and then return the originals before any of the staff realised anything had gone wrong. Sounds absolutely foolproof, doesn't it? No, possible. Because even when these three random guys left this building carrying stacks of manuals and documents, the security guard still didn't challenge them. There's a funny story. I'll give you the security guard so much. Thing was, this was around 2 a.m. So when they were going to find a printer shop, it was open at this time. Well, they wouldn't find one. And they couldn't go back just in case it was close to the shift changing. Plus, the security guard probably wouldn't believe the same story twice. Which I beg to differ on a fucking idiot. He absolutely believed it for a long time. So instead, they took the files home. But Kevin felt very uneasy about keeping them. So he got Lewis to disperse them in various trash cans throughout the town. Then, not long after this, Susie came back into the picture. You see, although Lewis and Susie weren't in a relationship anymore, he still talked to them. And it turns out that Lewis couldn't keep his mouth shut even in this scenario of all scenarios that he would keep quiet about. And Lewis told her what he and Ken was done. So he told Susie about the manuals that they stole, and of course, Susie went ran on them again and again. A few days later, as Kevin was driving home from his job at the time as a receptionist, he noticed an unusual car. You see, Kevin was pretty familiar with the business system. He noticed a Ford Crown Victoria, which had 3 men inside. Okay, they didn't panic, so he drives off and does a U-turn to see if they follow him. They follow him. He speeds up and goes onto the freeway, and they are still following him. And now, one of them reaches out the window and places that little light on the roof. Of course, undercover cops. Kevin is sensible for that last week, not going to have a high-speed chase with the cops and try to run away. So Kevin pulled over and the cops all leap out and draw their guns, screaming out to get him.
Jesus.
One of the cops shouts at Kevin and says, "You're going to stop fucking about with the phone company, we're going to teach you a lesson." Remember, Kevin is still a juvenile, and as a juvenile, when it comes to the law, you have a few extra rules. But Kevin wouldn't get any of those this time. Another police car then shows up. his car for a logic bomb. The police thought that a logic bomb was an actual physical bomb. It's not surprising that police in the 80s were just not tech literate. To be honest, the modern police aren't really tech literate either. Kevin was soon taken down to jail and placed in a cell. Kevin was then transferred to the juvenile hall so he could be brought to court the next day. And when he was in court, the judge just seemed baffled by the situation. A hacker? What's that? What the fuck is a hacker? Like, the legal system didn't really have a concept of this stuff. Like, all of this stuff was brand new. Kevin was being charged as a hacker, and at the time there really wasn't the concept of a good or neutral hacker, white hats, black hats, etc., etc. In the eyes of the law, all hackers were bad. But Kevin hadn't actually done anything malicious with the data and the systems that he got access to. He didn't get any proprietary software, like on computers or anything like that. Yes, he did get unauthorized access to a building by force and did take confidential information. But that was it. The judge could tell that there was more to this story. Kevin wasn't there for financial gain or anything like that. It was just the age of temptation of exploring what you're not willing to explore. The thrill of getting access to the challenging and so-called secure system. Kevin was not a Lafayette Watts, a young, thrill-seeking hacker with an enthusiasm for technology. This ended with Kevin receiving a 90-day psychological evaluation in a juvenile facility. He spent the full time there and he would very often regularly talk to his mom. But he would be turning 18 soon. In any other case, he might have received a prison sentence when he turned 18. But the facility recommended that he be released on probation, which was granted by the court. Kevin received counselling because the courts in the juvenile facility didn't see his crimes as an act of violence or an urge to gain cash. They saw them as more of an addiction. And maybe they were. But when Kevin stopped acting there, of course not, he was just getting started. Again, he would hack another campus, but this time it was the University of Southern California. But he got caught again, which obviously violated his probation. And he got sent to juvie again, this time for 6 months. All of the fuss that Kevin had been causing, of course, drew attention to his name, especially in Argentina. This is where his new hacking pseudonym would come in. So let me explain that one. After 6 months in juvie, Kevin was eventually given an evidence with some conditions. When Kevin was asked what conditions he needed to stop him from hacking, Kevin came up with a way to explain it to these technological savages so that they could better understand. Because the government institutions, the people who worked in juvie, everyone was technical in it, right? It was the 80s, right? No one knew much about computers except for specific hobbyists, right? So he had to figure out a way to explain the different types of hacking to them. They had no concept of ethical hacking versus malicious hacking. So Kevin described bad form of hacking as dark side hacking, using Star Wars as a reference, which of course would be very popular at the time. An early Times reporter somehow came across this conversation. I wonder how a reporter managed to get a hold of private minutes from a psychological evaluation. You would think that type of stuff would be top secret and all that, patient confidentiality. Hey, well, who cares? Journalists, it's a stupid thing. But anyway, this is when Kevin would gain the name of Kevin Mitnick, the dark side hacker. And this would only be the start of the media taking an interest in Kevin's story. So, after his release, you guess how Kevin got into trouble again? Well, this time, he was actually trying to do something good. He ended up getting a job in 20th Century Fox, where he was being trained as a software developer, learning new languages for him, like COBOL and basic assembly language. Plus, on top of this, he was learning about mini computers, just like the art that he had to not too long ago. This would seem like a good turn in life for him. But after only 2 months, Kevin lost the job due to an internal issue with other employees. Apparently, the union moved that the position that Kevin was given should have been offered to employees that were already working there, which is a shame for Kevin, and his life might have taken a completely different path if he was allowed to keep his job. So, now jobless and potentially feeling pretty shitty already, things would get even worse when Kevin's parole officer phoned him up. All he said was this: Kevin, have a big breakfast, eat all you can, then come to see me. If your parole officer tells you that, something bad's about to happen. This is another kind of funny scenario. You see, since Kevin had already been caught several times before and he was very well known to the police as a hacker, they thought he was this insane hacker that could manipulate any piece of technology. Kevin often got blamed for unanswered technical mishaps. This, combined with the state's complete lack of knowledge when it came to technology, made them blame Kevin for any issues that went down. Now, of course, when I say that, I don't mean that Kevin got blamed for every single hack going on in the United States that was unaccounted for, but he would very often end up on the list of suspects. One example was when his previous parole officer had a mishap with her phone. The phone company fixed the issue for her, but said they couldn't figure out what actually caused the problem. So she just blamed it on Kevin. She just assumed that, well, Kevin must have tried to hack my phone and put it on his file. This was then accepted as fact on his record without any other evidence. And it wasn't Kevin. The dumb bitch just had a problem with her phone. As you can imagine, Kevin was quite used to this by now, and probably quite sick of it. But it wasn't this previous incident that was causing him trouble now. During his downtime, Kevin, of course, would still mess around with his handwriting. And in particular, in LA at the time, there was a certain repeater group which was dubbed by radio enthusiasts as Animals. And those guys were essentially all out chaos. They would try to jam and intercept other people's radio transmissions, and of course they would shitpost all over the radio. They were all like an old school call bomb. So it turns out that Kevin would frequent on the Animal House signal, on which he would apparently annoy various people, which led to him annoying the wrong person. One guy who must have got really pissed off at Kevin proceeded to call the parole office to complain that Kevin had hacked into the company that he was working for, that company being Xerox. The combination of Kevin already having a bad reputation and past history for doing similar things, along with this guy seeming to be a reputable source, was enough for Kevin to get dragged in front of his parole officer. While his mother was waiting in the lobby for him, Kevin was soon handcuffed and arrested again and sent off to Bad Boys Jail, where he would await parole board. While at the station, Kevin would make a few phone calls to various friends and family to see what could be done since things could only get worse from here on out. Now, thankfully for Kevin, the parole board didn't take the accusation too seriously because there wasn't even any evidence of any act even being done or at least committed by Kevin. But he wouldn't get off scot-free because in his parole conditions he was told to stop using his radio. But apparently at the time it was only the FCC that had the authority to take these privileges away from him. But hey ho, the government had already first taken over, so why stop? Kevin would receive 60 days in jail, but he would already serve most of them, being released just a few days later. And you know, sometimes when you're somewhere for so long, you need a little bit of soothing. So Kevin had told his mother to drive to the LA Police Academy. We aren't sure what specifically Kevin was looking for, but apparently there were license plate things you could buy from there that were cop friendly, meaning if the cops saw that you had Police Academy plates, they were a lot less likely to pull you over, which of course would be a great benefit for Kevin, especially with his last account. But while Kevin was there, he found something much more valuable. A stacker, but not just any. LA Police Academy here, containing a photo of every LAPD officer that they had trained, including the undercover ones. Kevin kept these for future reference. But of course, being sent to Julian jail again wouldn't help Kevin from that. So on his downtime, he managed to get another job at a family friend's company, helping out with computer-related issues. Kevin and the folks at the recognize Big Stevie Rhodes again, with both regularly using computers for Kevin's work, which of course wasn't then exactly asking for trouble about. Well, one day, Kevin was out having lunch with a female colleague, and he noticed a group of guys who were wearing suits. And Kevin recognized they were cops. They obviously went in here to just have a catch-up with them, so rather than running, which would attract attention, Kevin hugged the girl who was with him, quickly told her that he saw an old friend who he didn't want to talk to, and he was trying to avoid him. This worked as a good ploy for them, so they both made their way into the car, avoiding the undercover cops. So Kevin now had to figure out if these guys were actually tailored. So he made his way to a payphone that he called the LAPD, made good use of his social engineering skills. He managed to finesse his way over to the records department, and he asked them if there had been any hits, which means is there an outgoing warrant for a Kevin Bing. And there was. So what options did Kevin have? Well, it was either turn himself in or wait to be arrested. But there was a third option. Run. Run away and wait till things blow over. Apparently, Kevin had found out that he was to wait just 2 years after the commitment date, the jurisdiction of the juvenile court would expire, meaning he could possibly just vanish and wait it out unless he was caught. So the plan was set in motion. Kevin would leave his home and move around 150 miles away to a place called Oregon, where he would stay with some friends, some other family friends. Successfully, he managed to lose his homestead and it was far away from any emotion. But it also meant that there was no tent for him to use, besides a TV for him to watch the occasional game show. This was of course a very different change of pace for Kevin, staying on a mini farm with an older couple, but it would help him avoid the authorities for now. While hidden away in a more remote part of California, many people started to rumor that Kevin actually fled to history, which wasn't true. But this rumor was spread and he will affect him later, which we'll get into soon. But now, Kevin would stick it out in the country for 4 months before receiving a call from his attorney who confirmed that he had been discharged from the youth authority, and within a few days, he was back in Los Angeles. So after being on the run for only a few months and essentially getting off the hook, Kevin would get straight back into his old tactics. His next steps were supposed to hack more games, but to do so he would need to increase his general knowledge of it, something to sharpen his cunning skills and take himself up a little. At this time, Kevin had his eyes on general telephone, and with him already being so knowledgeable and active there, he was reasonably sure that he could land himself a job there, which would bring him a lot more than just a good wage. After doing some research, Kevin found out that the company actually takes on graduates from a local technical school called CLC, or Computer Learning Center in Los Angeles. This would be his ticket into general intelligence systems. But studying at the CLC was a big change for Kevin, not just academically, but also socially. For starters, this was kind of an uptight school that required all students to dress formally. By formally, I mean full suit and tie. And Kevin hadn't worn a suit since, well, his last 4 months. But now 23 and with some added kgs, Kevin had to get some good drills so he could attend this school. So, with what money his mother could get together, he bought 2 new suits. Besides the tightness of the school, Kevin apparently really enjoyed himself, learning assembly languages along with messing around with more high-level languages. Well, funnily enough, the one subject that Kevin didn't pay any attention to at all was hacking. Anything that was even mentioned, Kevin would just calmly sit there and nod his head because he wasn't paying any attention. Because his main interest was the technology itself and learning the key fundamentals of computing. But while studying, Kevin was still hacking it, still messing with his own companies and a constant cat and mouse game. And really, all of these
The number one pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement company. What's our contingency?
they said that humanity's last chance.
What's so special about Domino's specialty pizzas? Your taste buds will know. Trust me, you never know.
7 Series was never just made for mountains. It was made for those who know the value of it. This is 25 years of relentless pursuit.
One of the best parts about the CX-5 is its driving characteristics. Compact SUVs aren't supposed to be visible.
These hacking attempts on these surrounding telephone companies would just benefit Kevin more and more. He would learn a variety of methods to exploit their phone systems and if the lower level approaches would work, he would just scale the ladder looking for new open company. Now, yes, Kevin did use various technological exploits to gain access to systems, but for the most part, all of this was done with how professionally he could social engineer someone. Like, truly, this man is described as a telephone spy, an intelligent version of the phone jack. Also, during this time, he got access to the NSA's phone numbers. Ironic. But besides all of this, how was Kevin's academic career? Well, it wasn't just all about networking with computers as he managed to network what the media can say this. A woman. Yes, that's right. Kevin had managed to hack into one of the most complicated systems in the world by getting a girl to talk to him. Her name was Dawn, and although Kevin had pounds over the years, this wouldn't stop him from trying to knock his USB off. Yes, I understand. Yes, I'm just going to create so much later. Just let me read the schedule. You may wonder, how did this network work? Well, funnily enough, with hacking, well, in computer class one day, Kevin had started sliding into Bonnie's DMs, asking her if she would join him for dinner. She declined, as apparently she was access to them. But a few days later, he asked her again, this time saying she had a beautiful smile. Access right. But it wasn't quite that easy. After some discussion, it turns out Bonnie had a slight suspicion that her fiancé had been lying about his finances. And who better to discuss this than one of the best social engineers in the world. So of course, Kevin called her, asking if she wanted him to check it out. She agreed. After some dumpster diving, a few hours on the phone, and a lovely look up on his computer, Kevin had everything. A credit report, his bank balance, property records, and even what assets of his were frozen. Turns out, Bonnie's suspicion was correct. Her fiancé was not doing as well as he was making out. Now, to be clear, this does seem a little bit shitty on Kevin trying to get involved in messing around with someone's relationship for his own benefit, but to give him the benefit of the doubt, Kevin did say that he wasn't trying to undermine their relationship, and he did genuinely feel bad about the scenario. But sadly, after Kevin had confirmed Bonnie's suspicions, she broke things off with the fiancé not too long. Within a few weeks, she and Kevin started dating. Kevin was absolutely buzzing, installed the computer duty despite his weight, but she apparently took a liking to Kevin quite well, making this Kevin's first ever serious relationship. This relationship would continue, and Kevin would complete his school program, even staying on longer than he had to mess around a little bit more on the campus. Besides some minor hacking in the background, Kevin went on to get a job at Bonnie's employer, GT, the same company that Kevin had been hacking for years. So, of course, he was absolutely ecstatic to get this job. He now had the job he always wanted, and he was getting paid to do something that he loved, being a programmer. He would learn a variety of things there, although tediously he did have to be taught stuff that he was already competent at. Probably far more competent than the teacher. Because remember, he had already been hacking this company for years. And this job would last a grand total of 9 years. So did Kevin do anything wrong or illegitimate in the company? No. Because of the skill level, Kevin was actually granted a higher level of privilege at the company, but to get this privileged access, he had to go through a background check, which resulted in GTE's security team going, wait a minute, we fucking know this guy. So Kevin was very quickly escorted to his desk by several members of the security team and told to pack up his stuff and get the fuck out of the building. After applying for a few other jobs, Kevin had some luck. This time at a bank of all places. But to find out a memo announcing his employment, saying, "Hi everyone, let's welcome Kevin Whitney to the team." And people recognise his name in the building times up. So his past friends having an activity and once again come back to work. So what else would Kevin do if he couldn't get any of the system back? Of course, continue hacking and spend time spending the rest with the long run. Of course, they will grow and eventually they started talking about that with the young people saving up whatever money they could for. Things weren't looking too bad. Bonnie was still working away and Kevin was still hacking away. Until one day, Bonnie comes home to find that their apartment had been ransacked. The place had been ripped apart. So of course, she contacted Kevin as soon as she could. But something was off when she was suspected of it had a sort of glow to it. You see, when Kevin asked Bonnie if the wedding ring was still there, it was there, but it had been laid out on the kitchen counter right next to the search warrant. They'd been raided by the police. The only things that they were missing was Kevin's computer and hard disks. Oh dear, oh no, fucking no. I mean, a break-in would have been preferable because the burglars would have had no idea what to do with any of the data objects. But the cops, well, they were a bit of a different story. It was past the damage control stage and straight onto the abandoned ship stage. Kevin met up with Bonnie and his mother and they opened heart to discuss what to do next. You see, Kevin wasn't too concerned about what was happening with the law as he hadn't done anything too crazy. He had figured out that the search must have been related to a hack he was working on. He was poking around in the systems of a company called Santa Cruz Operations. Not downloading any source code or doing anything malicious, just having a little bit of it. But Kevin's main concern was cutting those around the world. He didn't want to put his mother, potential wife, or his grandmother before him by being sent back to prison. Worse yet, he didn't want to lose his love victim, Bonnie. But it turns out that she showed her true loyalty when, instead of giving her shit, she stuck by him and supported him. Everyone was trying to take the next step. For starters, Bonnie tried to get some time off of work to help deal with all of this by claiming it was a family emergency. But when she called her boss to take the time off, her boss informed her that some police officers had stopped by wanting to talk to because Kevin had been acting from her apartment on telephone. But the cops didn't suspect that she was the hacker, especially after her boss had told the cops, oh yeah, her boyfriend, Kevin Mitnick. The cops very quickly understood who was the one responsible. So the cops were then trying to get to Kevin through his girlfriend. Kevin sort of guessed that this would all boil down to a case of either admit that he did or his girlfriend would receive some kind of punishment. So Kevin and Bonnie decided to just pat themselves in and they were both arrested. However, to this day, according to Kevin, there is no official record of their arrest because the police actually neglected to take any fingerprints or photos of. Goes to show what type of organisation they were doing. But some good came out of this. Kevin and Bonnie soon married for two reasons. Firstly, because they already planned to get married. And secondly, being married meant that Bonnie couldn't testify against Kevin in court. Plus, they could visit each other if Kevin was in jail. So, in a fast fashion, they married each other in a not so fancy way, but nonetheless, they were officially married. Thankfully, any children.
Here it is, dude. I'm still not an IT guy. When something breaks, I think you got solution quickly so you can get that machine back on the ground. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm having an issue with my plasma table. Could you please advise what the problem might be? Sure. Just open up your plasma check all the years you actually have. Having that knowledge right in my back pocket, it's just a game changer. Christmas present? Kiss my calendar!
The charges against Bonnie were dropped, and Kevin was going to get a $216 fine and 3 years of probation, meaning Kevin would get another probation officer again. But when picking up his stuff from the station, Kevin got his computer back, but not the plans. Meaning one of two things. Either A, the cops had simply forgotten them or lost them, which is, see if you ever had anything seized by the cops, really fucking common, or B, the cops were still analysing them from other evidence of other crimes, which, if the latter was true, then Kevin was basically fucked. As the crimes did contain evidence of some previous acts of another telephone company that Kevin had hacked years ago. And unfortunately, in those scenarios, they had found the evidence that they needed and they handed it over to the Pacific Bell security team. Kevin managed to get a hold of some information on the investigation by again socially engineering their staff to fax over some memos about it. And Kevin was right. They had a full breakdown of what information he got and how far into their systems he got. But for now, things went fine. But in the meantime, despite all of this shit hanging over his head, Kevin would continue hacking. A year later, Kevin, along with an old hacker friend of his, named Chicho, enrolled back in college. The exact same college that Kevin had done some hacking in before and got in trouble. And when he got on campus, he did it again. He did the exact same thing again. He and his partner went on campus and used the campus computers to hack our systems. When using the campus terminals to hack into a company that they had already previously hacked into, see message in the computer for the script to run. But see, since these were public computers, it would only be a matter of time until someone looked at the screen and saw what was happening. And Kevin and Lenny soon found out that that is exactly what happened when they were told by an old friend of theirs who was also attending the college that he overheard some of the staff discussing the situation. As you can imagine, the college reported this to the police. But since Kevin and Lenny never went back to the tape, which they knew that the staff were watching, they had no evidence that it was those two who were behind it. But the staff of the college were pretty sure who the culprits were. They just couldn't prove it. You know that old chestnut, well, we can't prove it was you, but it was probably you. Well, that saves them as far as the cops were concerned, because they faced no charges. It wouldn't save them from the university, who kicked Kevin and Lenny out based on this circumstantial evidence. You see, this would be one of the largest turning points in Kevin's story. He had already been double-crossed by various people along his happy journey, and they wouldn't be the last. Alright, the earlier backstabs were still shit for Kevin, but all of the happening was still too bad and wouldn't get in too much trouble. But it wouldn't be long until Lenny would start to have a little bit of glow. Lenny and Kevin had been happy together for a while, and Lenny had already thrown Kevin under the bus in a previous act they committed together, but not to the cops, to the FBI. This was only the beginning to his antics. You may think, Kevin, what the fuck, why did you keep chatting with this guy after he pulled that shit? And of course, we aren't really sure of all the details of the accounts of what exactly went on, so I'm sure the scenario wasn't quite as black and white as that, you know, from an outside perspective. But maybe Kevin was just a very forgiving person. Either way, the two of them would focus on having the DEC again, who seems to be a very popular target at the time, because another set of hackers known as the Chaos Computer Club, or the CCC, had already been sticking their fingers into digital spy. And we'll get back to them in a moment, but for now, what was the main motive for Lenny having an obsession with hacking DEC? Well, if you remember the last time Kevin hacked them, at that time, they were developing a popular operating system called the Steezy. But this time, they were working on another operating system called VMS. So, if they could put the source code for that, they could find flaws in operating system security that they could then exploit. So, after some digging around, Kevin and Lenny managed to exploit a dormant account on the DEC's development cluster, which they both managed to do as a duo. Kevin on the phone using his social engineering skills with the employee, when Lenny was on the computer trying to gain access with the information relayed by Kevin. This worked perfectly, and with no suspicion as well as rather than creating two accounts on the system, which of course was raising a flag, they used a dormant account that was already in place that had a high level of system privileges. Once they had access, things were in motion. They quickly opened source code and started implementing some safety nets on them. This gave it the form of a tool they unlocked that apparently managed to disable any security audits without raising any alarms, which would allow them to further exploit the network by creating more accounts with high privileges, along with changing credentials of older accounts that hadn't been used in over half a year, just so they had some backups. Once the groundwork could be laid down, it was time for Kevin to do some proper snooping on the network, on which Kevin discovered another account by the name of Andy Goldstein. So what did Kevin do? He checked for the same emails, but Kevin found that another researcher in the UK had been sending Mr. Goldstein reports on security bugs that he had found throughout the system, so that these bugs could be patched. One particular vulnerability was documented to have been exploited by a certain group known as the Chaos Computer Club. So this, of course, caught the attention of Kevin, not due to discovering some handy exploits that he could use himself, Kevin was a lot more interesting than other hardware because, as we see before, Kevin has always had a thirst for more information and learning new techniques, especially from competent hackers. After dabbling a little into their research, Kevin discovered that these guys were located in Germany and he found the name of their leader and he managed to track down his number and get in contact with him. We aren't clear who the leader was at the time, we can only speculate, but Kevin nonetheless would start chatting to other members of this club, trying to gain an insight into more hacks and tricks. Plus, at this point in the underground hacking sphere, Kevin had made quite a name for himself and gained some popularity. This would lead Kevin to finally receiving the printouts detailing the hacks that these German hackers had been working on with Lenny in the public, allowing Kevin and Lenny to implement them with ease. This would lead them to possibly adapt the tools that were given to them by Chaos Computing Club, adapting it to new versions of the operating system as it came out. But of course, after more and more systems were getting compromised, company programmers would create security tools that were made to detect the exact tools that were used by the Chaos Computer Club. But Kevin made sure to keep one step ahead of them along with Lenny. They would just simply modify the tools they already had so they wouldn't be detected. This would of course lead to Kevin and Lenny infecting various systems with the modified tools. One of which was JPM, or the Jet Propulsion Laboratory owned by NASA. But unlike the other companies they were messing with, NASA's a little bit more up there, a little bit more federal, a little bit more national security level type stuff. So NASA did manage to notice that some unauthorized changes were being made to their systems, which led them to reverse engineer the code to try and identify what was being uploaded. But fortunately for Kevin, rather than drawing attention to him, NASA looked at the tools and saw that they were very similar to the same kinds of tools used by the Chaos Computing Club, leading NASA to believe that they were the ones who were behind them. So thankfully for Kevin, he had the doors of the Department of Defense come out. But now, this is where things get a little bit weird for Kevin, quite honestly, a little bizarre. You see, for the most part, Kevin has managed to dodge the feds when going strong. But you're only as strong as your weakest link. And it seems as soon as he starts collaborating with other hackers, things get a little bit complicated. Lenny had already been suspicious before, with him already spilling info, and it would only get worse. This eventually came about after he and Kevin made a little bet together. The story was something like this. At Lenny's work, they had installed new digital locks on the computers. Underestimating Kevin, Lenny made a bet that he couldn't guess the code. But honestly, Kevin wouldn't have been able to. It just wasn't realistic. But Kevin still took it on board. Can you take away the guess? While they were in the office, Kevin had noticed a wallet under the desk. So he dropped his pen, picked up the wallet, and hid it in the sock. Then he made up that he had to go to the back. While away from Lenny, he searched the wallet not for money, not for credit cards, but instead just for some paper. And he found some paper, on which was the code for the door. This sounds really silly, and Kevin felt the same way. I mean, surely you'd think that Lenny would have just used the code to open the wallet. Kevin even thought that all of this, like finding the wallet on the ground and all that, might have been an elaborate plan to try and throw Kevin. Kevin managed to go back and stash the wallet before Lenny could see. Lenny gave Kevin an hour to figure out the code. Lenny, however, had no idea that Kevin had already seen the code. So Lenny left, fetched something that he left Kevin to his own devices. As soon as he left, Kevin tried to close the door, and it worked. He managed to get into the computer room, and while he was in there, he also managed to log onto all of the computers and gain full access to the system, all while Lenny was still. Lenny then returned to see Kevin sitting in the month in the United States, Lenny clearly pissed off, claiming that Kevin cheated, which I suppose you could say that maybe played. But a bet was a bet, and Kevin just held out his hand, asking for the $150 that they had bet on. Of course, Lenny wasn't going to give him the money, so Kevin just messed about with it, not taking it too seriously, but Lenny seemed a little bit fallen apart. And this is where things start to go downhill rapidly. As we know already, Kevin was never been a practical individual. So again, not taking things too seriously, he thought he was doing a little prank on Lenny and his wife, as he'd been known to do before. So, to mess with him, Kevin phoned Lenny's work, specifically the accounting department, claiming to be from the IRS, saying that Lenny's paycheck was to be withheld from official IRS business card. I'm sure you'll understand. And of course, they believed it, though they did request this in the form of an official fax. Remember fax? But Kevin wasn't doing that yet. He wasn't actually fully go through with his plan, he was just shipping it. So the accounts department still give Lenny his paycheck. However, Lenny's boss was then informed that the IRS had called him to accept the Lenny. And Lenny's boss was not called. Lenny did not take that way. One thing led to another. For some reason, despite Lenny went to his boss and told them that he and Kevin had been hacking into BBC from their office. Though some other stories have speculated that staff at Lenny's market already guessed it was Kevin, prompting them to ask Lenny about both the IRS and if he had any trouble with Kevin. This then led to Lenny confessing that both he and Kevin had been up to, claiming Kevin had forced him into it. Now, although this may sound rather one-sided, Kevin may not be entirely innocent in this scenario, as other sources have claimed that Kevin was quite consistent with Lenny, to the point it would apparently cause tension both in his friendships with Lenny and another friend Lewis, along with his relationship with Bonnie. Kevin would apparently spend many nights hacking away while lying to Bonnie that he was studying or doing something else. Although these are all just allegations, we don't actually know if this is true or not. So Kevin was a little bit fucked. But rather than instantly calling the police, Lenny and his boss would sit down with the security staff at the BBC and cover everything they were being doing, which would lead to the FBI being brought in to do a sting operation. Lenny would be flagged up, the computers would be monitored, and now all they need was Kevin to unsuspectingly join in on the call. Well, Kevin was still wanting to focus on BBC, specifically on one researcher from England helping with the security flaws in their software. Throughout their hacking session, Kevin could tell that Lenny seemed a little bit off. He asked him about it, he would just say that he was tired. After a few hours, they would finish it. But really, this was just the beginning of another judicial arc for Kevin. A few days later, Lenny would call Kevin to when he told him the money that he wanted to pay, which Kevin would probably accepted him.
Introducing Chipotle high protein, real chicken, no threat, no antibiotics, no fillers, ever. Starting at $3.50 pack of protein, Chipotle high protein engine, real protein,
More boxes, more options. Clean has over 1,700 box types in stock. And built to help you pack, store, and ship everything. And to become a great
right into the parking lot and then was walking as a pulsar to meet her. But Lenny knew that he had to lure Kevin out of his car and get him to pop the trunk. Reason being, his trunk is where he would keep the other evidence of their happiness, as well as other pieces of data that they might be copied during their session, which, of course, was everything that was there. And if the trunk was open, it means that the FBI agents could just put it inside instead of having to get a warrant. After chatting, Lenny then managed to get Kevin out of the car, claiming that he wanted the hard disks so he could send the terminal emulator software to another friend. After stepping out of the car, Lenny apparently said to Kevin, "You know that feeling in your stomach when you're about to get arrested? Well, get ready." Various cars then appeared from nowhere and surrounded Kevin, with the usual men in suits pulling from them, shouting FBI, FBI. At first, Kevin thought that this might have been an elaborate prank to further his revenge for the previous prank, but it was not. And that was it. Kevin was backstabbed, and while he was being arrested, Lenny was smiling, laughing, and dancing in Kevin's face. Kevin asked Lenny if he could at least phone his mother to tell her that he had been arrested, and Lenny didn't need to do that. Unlike the past few times when Lenny was arrested, this time he would not be getting off easily. He was charged with various administrative crimes, and he would be sentenced to 12 months in prison, along with 3 years of supervised release, along with undergoing counselling for his addiction. You might be thinking, did Lenny get one? Well, comparatively yes. Lenny only got 750 hours of service, along with 5 years. The funny thing is, they wouldn't have allowed Kevin to go on bail due to the fact that he had fled to Israel years prior to avoid previous punishment. Kevin would honestly have a very hard time both in the courts and in the press. Many journalists would refer to him as the stereotypical overweight computer nerd that had nothing better to do than to drink slurpees and attack people. And the public thinking even worse, which is the slander, was the fact that both, of course, went into technology and craft. And so long as we keep going technologically literate. One claim made by US Attorney Leon Whiteman was that Kevin could whistle a certain frequency into a telephone and launch nuclear missiles from the NORAD system. Now, you don't have to be technically literate to know that's giant bullshit. That's giant bullshit. That has literally never been possible. But this may have helped him to scare the magistrate into the decision to refuse bail, along with other accusations. Just a wee quick side tangent. The reason that the courts may have believed this dialogue of bullshit is because there was another phone figure at the time named Captain Crunch. And the reason he got his name is because he discovered that the little whistle toys that you got in Captain Crunch cereal boxes actually produced a frequency that allowed you to make calls if you blew it down the phone line. This might have been why the courts believed all that new bullshit. So yeah, frequencies down the phone line was a thing, but no, couldn't launch fucking nukes with it. They also didn't let Kevin have bail because when armed with a keyboard, Kevin posed a danger to society, and he was also supposed to have unlimited access to a telephone. He was still allowed to make arranged calls to specific people, but that didn't stop. While they would be making these arranged calls for him, Kevin managed to hang up the payphone behind his back and dial a new number. This, of course, would patch him through to an operator, and Kevin would simultaneously pretend to be still talking to the person he initially called, while also saying the correct things to answer the operator on the other line. Which, I think that's pretty impressive. Kevin would do this successfully on various occasions, to the point that the person couldn't figure out how he was making these direct calls to unsanctioned people he was not allowed to call. This led to the installing a payphone just outside the prison cell. So they could pass him the handset through the bars that Kevin could access the basement or any of the buttons. They were all sealed up the other side of the cell. So yeah, you wouldn't be able to carry on with that trickery anymore. Finally, Kevin would be reunited with Saul. He was locked up in solitary confinement with the occasional visit from his wife Dawn, as well as his mother and his grandmother to break up the time he expected. But things were just going to get worse. Because after spending time in prison, it seemed his wife Bonnie wasn't happy with how things were going, and she ended up finding while in prison. Kevin did actually call her on his phone, but it seemed that prison for Kevin was the last stop. This, of course, was a big shock to Kevin, because when reading his medical notes on this situation, it seemed that Kevin did actually really love her and was planning to spend the rest of his life with her. Kevin did have this suspicion. He thought that another guy must be with him. So, of course, he wanted to do what's good he could with her, since this had seemed like such a strange change of heart for her. And he tricked. There was another. After some messing around with the answering machine on Bonnie's apartment, Kevin had managed to hear both sides of their conversation. At this point, Kevin wasn't able to confirm who it was, but after he moved to Hartley House, Kevin continued for excellent appointments and visits, which included going to see Bonnie. While attempting to get back with her, Kevin noticed that she had left a phone call with her. It turns out that she had been spending hours on the phone with one of Kevin's closest friends. Lewis King. Not long after this, she moved in with Lewis. Because obviously, if you don't like the history of Louis prison for being a hacker, the sensible choice is to go with another hacker. Soon after leaving prison, Kevin had traded his addiction for hacking for another one. Listen, he was now very focused on getting into shape and apparently became quite determined, walking out from hours at a time. Walking out from hours at a time. That's a normal work expression. A lot of you know that I use research instead of reading the scripts, especially one this big. This motherfucker's actually walking out from hours at a time. That's a normal workout session. That's a normal workout session. You know what? Everyone watching, try and guess the BMI of the guy that wrote that sentence. You're probably correct. But anyway, this led to Kevin losing the power of thought, fitting with the previous archetypes that the media had portrayed him as. Fucking hours at a time. One of our sessions is at least like 2.5 hours. Fuck's sake, go to the fucking gym. Of course, Kevin would keep on that. But for that short period after his prison sentence, he would focus on himself. But in the background, he had this constant worry that he was being monitored by the NPR, which is a creepy thing to have to worry about. So he wanted to try and gain some form of relief by something concealing his thoughts. How would he do this? Well, Kevin didn't know. But Kevin knew things, and he was very determined. So it was only a matter of time before Kevin figured out how to do this. The year is 1991 in the Las Vegas Convention Center, and Kevin is there attending the CES. And no, he wouldn't be hacking into any tech companies or trying to exploit any systems there. His plan was to hack, but not him. He was just going to do some social engineering or do a little bit of networking. Because you see, when calling people, there is a particular identification number known as an ESN, electronic serial, along with the phone number or MIN, mobile identification number, which is basically used to verify if the individual is a subscriber with whatever phone company, what address these numbers are registered to, etc., etc. So if Kevin could change these numbers or mask them somehow, it would be very difficult to tap into or listen to his calls, because they would look like someone else's calls. But figuring out exactly how to do this was going to be very difficult to do. Because to do this, Kevin would need to figure out if there was an inbuilt way to do it via the phone he already had, or potentially another way. So, who there to ask than the phone company itself. Kevin had a Novatel phone, so Novatel, like mentioned, Kevin used a payphone to call into their HQ in Alberta, Canada, doing his usual navigating with the secretaries right into the engineering department. He managed to talk to a chap named Kumamoto. Thankfully, manager wasn't there at the time, which was the perfect chance for Kevin to do some social manipulation, using the pretext that he was at CES representing Novatel, and he wanted to do some demos with the phones he was trying to sell. But he needed to change the ESX of the phones, and asked Kumamoto if there was any way he could do that via the phone itself, hoping that maybe there was a certain key sequence that would allow him to reprogram. Unfortunately, there wasn't.
Really? Hotline tell us where it hurts. Kid has a fever?
Well, number one, selling Be Cool cooling patches give instant relief from fever discomfort. Yes, Be Cool works are we there yet fast. Kobayashi Healthcare. If it hurts, we help.
Or raising my kid to golf and you let that choose my patient. Tell him, Dad. I need to find my daughter. That's what we do. I will help you down. He's too late. The dynamite fire first.
Countdown is on. It's the year-end sales event at the Basil Family Dealerships. Choose from over 1,400 vehicles at the 10 Basil Family Dealership locations. You're priced on pre-owned inventory to sell with vehicles under $10,000. Cars, trucks, SUVs, and trucks. No matter what you're looking for, we've got the perfect vehicle for you. And Basil get $2,500 more for your trade every day. Add credit, no credit, Basil says yes. Shop right now at BasilCars.com. But, and a big but, Kumamoto said that there was a specific hardware version which could be used to reprogram the PSN. This version, however, was used by the FCC for testing. But now, Kevin knows it exists. And he wanted it. But the thing is, unlike other forms of software, this will be built onto an EEPROM chip, or in English, an basically programmable read-only memory chip. Basically, a chip that isn't usually written to the hard disk, so it wouldn't be as easy as just downloading the software to his phone. He would need a chip programmed for it. So, of course, Kevin asked Kumamoto-san, Senpai, can I have a chip, please? To which, to which Kumamoto-san said, of course, how many do you want? Jackpot. But Kevin still had to get these delivered to him while he was still at the convention. So, by again coming up with some more on-the-spot bullshit, Kevin convinced them to FedEx to his hotel under the name of Mike Fisher. All while things were falling into place, Kevin was shifting. Because, I mean, you never know, with a bunch of FBI agents turned up to the hotel instead after the hotel for a while, were they truly all thought? Was it too good to be true? Well, before we get to the climax, Kevin still had to get some ESN on. So, his next call would be to LA Cellular to finesse some numbers. Using the pretext of some system failures going on, he asked the clerk if there were any recent phones being activated in the last few hours. And there was a total of 4. So he said to the clerk that he would need to keep ESN numbers of those customers so he could reactivate them. After the classic, he wouldn't want any unhappy customers when he could in order to help sell them. And like a charm, it worked. But collecting the package with the EEPROM chips himself might be a bit too risky. So Kevin had to get another phone call. After his friend Alex Casper was going on, Alex was ecstatic and apparently volunteered to do the deal for Kevin and collect the Alex managed to collect the package with no issue, but it seems no one could caught on to Kevin's antics. Kevin would then get together with Lewis. Yes, Lewis, the guy that was now with Kevin's ex-wife, Bonnie, to test the chips. We aren't too sure about the details of all of this in regards to Kevin and Lewis's friendship, but it seems that even after that whole issue, their friendship overcame it and they were talking again. I'm thinking, given past behaviour, like I think Kevin is just a really forgiving person. But with the bitterness in the past, they tested the chips out of Kevin's phone and they worked. Kevin had now found a way to subvert the fence. But for Kevin, that funny feeling of being watched wouldn't quite go away. Carrying on with more hacking antics with Lewis, he still wanted to see if he was being tapped. But before searching for any wiretaps, Kevin had met another hacker through his brother Pat, a man named Eric Hines. But his actual name was Justin Tanner Pearson. But he wasn't just any hacker. There was something off about him that Kevin could tell. Even his brother Adam had actually warned Kevin that it was an ex-girlfriend of his that actually knew him, saying that she wasn't really that trustworthy. But something definitely was off about him. For being a hacker with a computer job, he seemed pretty well off financially, and he would often go quiet about certain things. But he knew quite a lot about the community, and he apparently been hacked alongside another well-known hacker called Kevin Wilson. Something seemed fishy. Also, contact details. So hey, if any won't get the details over, Kevin would just get this. Kevin would soon collect various details on these so-called addresses, phone numbers, etc., everything. Furthermore, that suspicion of being tapped became true. Kevin managed to figure out that even his dad's house had been tapped as well. Things were all starting to happen. Eric was with the feds. Maybe not as a fed himself, but merely a sniffer dog for the FBI to search for and bring other hackers home. This is a very common thing that the feds still do to this day. Catch a low-level fish and bang some serious charges over them, but then tell them that all of these big bad charges will go away if they help them catch a bigger fish. There are way more details and stories covering how Kevin specifically figured this out, along with all the other things that we've already covered. But Kevin was, well, very, very sure that Eric was with the feds. But what the FBI didn't expect was for their big fish to start fishing them. Just like a predator, Kevin would cover himself in some tropical mud and start to chase the bullies from outer space, keeping one step ahead of them. This would start by Kevin tapping the FBI's phone lines, along with setting up an early warning system to enable Kevin to detect if there were any calls being sent out by FBI numbers that he had managed to obtain earlier time while he was tapping them. In late September of 1992, Kevin was going into work and he heard some faint alarms going on, getting louder and closer equal to his office. This was his Fed Alert alarm system, but thankfully no one else was in at the time. The scanner had picked up an FBI call going off in the area. This wasn't good at all, but at least Kevin had some warning. This is the
Shut up.